Alright, couple of new sound speakers for the PC. Big boys, because up to this point I've been using this one. Like, it's a very good little speaker, especially for a phone or whatever, and it did the job, but I mean, yeah, it's tiny, so let's replace it. Alright, this sounds a lot better, and now I can actually complete work on the stingers and the sound effects for residual. Still some stuff that needed tweaking, and this sound will help with that a lot. So let's move on to work. So day one, and not a lot of stuff is done on day one because it's Friday now for me, and I wrapped up last week's video. I record my videos on Friday usually, then edit it, and then every hour I have left on that day I either spend on the game or take a little break and relax a little bit. This time I had a bunch of stuff I wanted to do. Let's just dive in, shall we? So like I said, not a lot of stuff was done so far. So what I did do was add lights to the scene. Now you can't see everything, but it's pretty much a dark area, so the things that are lit are done by light effects now, and you can see the hallway is light. Then I just randomly put big lights in the center of every apartment building. So it's very crude right now, but it does give me a good way to check if the lighting system works, and actually to figure out what works and what doesn't. I also changed some of the floor tiling and some of the walls so that there's less stuff going on. As you might have seen in last week's video, we just had purple walls here, weird red tiles over there, purple tiles here. There was just a lot going on, and I think we're gonna dim that a little bit down because it gives a much tighter look. And so far I'm digging it, especially with the light effects on there. And you can see here I was toying around a little bit with window effects, and I think that kind of works pretty well. So working on the interior and on the light effects. So the whole purpose of adding lights now and changing the wallpapers and the tiles is to find that certain look and vibe we need for this game. My original mock-up was pretty bright, brightly colored. That's mostly because I used a very bright palette. Now we're gonna dim it down and add light effects, and that just changes the look of everything. And it's now a matter of just seeing what works, and then that will be the base for all the other graphics we'll be creating, because this is just one building. Imagine offices or storage rooms or whatever. They'll have a certain different style of walls and floors, but they'll still need to fit in the mood and vibe that we're gonna be setting out after I'm done with all these light effects. So a lot of this inspiration, the look that I have now, comes from the SWAT TV show, and that has a very dark grayish and a little bit blue tone to it. So if you just watch that TV show, you'll notice their whole headquarters has just one color in it, and that's gray, and various variations of it. That's really the vibe they're going for. And since I've been doing YouTube videos and all that video editing stuff, I started noticing these things a lot more, that every show, or at least shows that have a good budget, often go for a certain look. And it's very interesting to see, but also very interesting to put stuff like that into games and into game graphics. So I'm learning a lot, doing a lot, figuring out a lot. And I can only imagine adding TVs to the living room that have a blue shine to the whole living room, and then you destroy that TV, you shoot it, and all the light is gone and everything. That's gonna be fun. Probably gonna be the next stage, adding stuff that we can shoot and destroy. Yeah, let's do this. It's Saturday now, and I wasn't planning on working, but was doing some other stuff, and figured I could add some first sound effects. So some sound effects added to the game. Very crude, very early, but at least there are some sound effects in there now. It was a very silent world, so that's all for now. I'm gonna spend the rest of the weekend doing other stuff, I guess. So it's Monday right now. Mondays is usually my day off, as I don't work on my games but often do all the admin and business type things around it. Except today there wasn't a lot. My inbox is pretty empty, so that's a good thing. I don't have to delete a lot of mail, respond to a lot of people. I can just work on stuff. I did get a bunch of sound effects and music themes and jingles for Residual. Which means I'm now adding them. The robot PDB, a little sidekick, is now finally getting its voice in the game.
The official intergalactic spaceship wreckage guidelines suggest that you find some basic resources for survival. Also, that you not crash your ship, but I guess we ignored that one.
A lot of fun, a lot of pointless random humor. This certainly gives PDB a certain charisma and character, and lots of fun adding it to Residual today. And tomorrow I'll be diving back into the new squad game, I guess. So this is today, this is Monday. Tuesday, and it's now 1:30 in the afternoon. Been working on Residual all this time, so there's not a lot of hours available to work on this new game or this prototype. I have two things I want to try. First of all, I need some action, both in my life but also in the game. So we're gonna try and implement bullets. I think that's gonna be the most fun. The other thing is this. Dylan created a bunch of characters, but these are just 2, 4, 6 characters, and they already take up a huge amount of sprite or graphic data. So I think we're gonna have to chop off their heads and procedurally generate them combining bodies and heads. I think that's gonna be much better, allows us to create a lot more variety, while we don't have to use as much animations and frames and pixels. So those are two things I want to work on, but I'm pretty sure I'll only manage one of those two. So I'm either gonna chop off all these heads and split them up in bodies and heads, but I think adding bullets is more fun, just some action, and that breaks up the work I've been doing this day so far, which was a lot of audio, music stuff, and very not a lot of action. So let's see if we can create some bullets flying around on the screen and then maybe break some stuff here and there. Alright, it's now 2 hours later and I did a bit of cheating. I copied a bunch of stuff from Ashworld, one of my other games that also has a top-down view and a little guy running around with a weapon around him and that can aim 360 degrees. So all that code is pretty much copy and paste from Ashworld. It still needs some tweaking for this game, but for now it's a good setup and a good base to begin with. And we can now also smash doors with some cool debris effects. It doesn't look like a lot, but having the debris bounce around and not through the walls and everything took some time, so I'm really happy with this result. We also have our first little object in this room that can be shot at TV and it can explode. Needs some sound effects and probably some more work, but you get the point. This is just making sure that all these type of things are up and running, and we have the guys and we can shoot and aim at them. They don't really care about bullets just yet, which is a great skill. But the main thing here is that we have a guy aiming at the nearest opponent and shooting bullets at it. So good progress. I think that's about it for today. Wanted to do a bunch more, like hide the rooms that aren't open so you can't see in those, but I guess and hopefully we'll have a more productive day tomorrow or more time to work on this, because I was productive, just not solely on this game. So the things I did manage to do are pretty cool. So my first attempt today to get a field of view type thing going in this game is literally field of view, and I'm using this first one because I could copy and paste most of this code from Space Grunts 2. So for me this was the quickest solution, but it's not really what I'm looking for. The doors right now are not seen as solid, so field of view will pass through the doors, which would be a thing to fix. Very easy, but the idea is that we will only see everything we could see in line of sight, and it's very realistic, but yeah, I don't think this is the way to go with this game. I also don't like you can see the tiles here, because field of view is going to be tile based. I could change it into the collision map, which is 8 by 8, but even then it would be very raw, and I don't think this is what I want. So we're gonna try the next option, which is simply gonna be more work. That's why I didn't start with it, but we're gonna hide stuff based on room. So if you're not in a room and the door is closed, this room will be hidden until you enter the room, breach the room. That room will be fully visible, everything in it will be visible. It just requires a little bit of setup, because then I need to keep track of where every room is and which door connects to which room, things like that. But I think that's going to be a better solution than this. I'm not going to dump this code just yet, but I'm going to deactivate it because I don't think it's what I want, but it's also not terribly bad. So we'll see. A few hours later now, and I've got a new system up and running. This is based more on the light system. All the hallways are lit up, but all the apartments are not until you open a door, breach a door and enter the room. And then the walls are visible, because right now my idea behind that is that if these guys are breaching a building, they most likely have some type of blueprint, so they know where the walls are and doors are. So that those are visible is not a problem. Just the room behind the door is not visible until you breach the door, and then everything in that room will become visible. And it still needs some tweaking with the lights here and there, but yeah, this is what I'm going to continue on tomorrow. So for now, this is it, and it's working, just not perfect. All right, so entering a building, and so we now have lit hallways, and this can be changed in different type of lights and stuff like that. But that's a bit of a new system I'm working on, while the inside of buildings are not lit. Also, hallway lights are not going through the walls into the buildings, which sounds obvious, but my light system usually couldn't do that. Now it can. So let's see if we can breach a door and we'll have light in this room. Now this room has no lights on, it just has a TV, and it has some window lights. And of course we can breach this door. Also opens up with lights, and we have this room and another light. And I also added some fun stuff like shooting, breaking windows, and of course breaking the TV, and that pretty much puts us in a dark place. So let's get out. Let's move up to another building, and breaching this door will also reveal the insides. And I think this system will work better than what we had. And of course these hallways are still very simple, but imagine boxes and crates and stuff like that, and more apartments, and it's starting to look like something. A good productive day. We're not there yet. I know where to continue tomorrow, and then we also should start putting stuff into these buildings to make it even look much better than it does now. It's Thursday now, and I've spent a lot of hours since yesterday afternoon completely rewriting the whole way the apartments are rendered. I came to the conclusion that what I had just wasn't working for everything I wanted to do. So we now render everything in a few extra layers, and it works now. I'm almost where I was yesterday, except everything is now changed and has new rendering code behind it. Even if this prototype is at some point cancelled, still a possibility, this code will be saved for any future stuff I do, and whenever I need something like this, because it now seems to be working perfectly, collision detection and everything. So it took a lot of time, but it's up and running. I can show you, but it would look pretty much the same as yesterday, except it's now completely redone. The biggest difference is that all these walls are now just the top edges of a wall, and the window still needs to be done, because this part of the window shouldn't be in this graphic. It should be part of a wall structure. So over here we now have the wall textures, and over here the floor textures. The things we do is, let me show you the code. If we go to a rendering, so the first thing we do is pretty much render all the floor tiles, because everything has a floor, so we always render the floor. And then we put all the wall textures into a sorted rendering list, because we need to sort everything from top to bottom of the screen, so that characters running behind the wall will also appear behind the wall. So floors first, and then adding all the wall textures to a sorting list. We then render everything that's interactive or visual effects, so everything that's on the floor, then all the sorting list, which will be most of the stuff. Enemies, items, main players, everything needs to be sorted from top to bottom on the screen. Then we render everything that doesn't need to be sorted, which are usually special effects or little explosions, smoke effects, things like that. And then eventually we get to light rendering is done first, and then every image that needs to be rendered after the light rendering, that's usually status bar type things or everything you don't want to be covered in darkness. And after that we render the top of the walls, which is the new layer that we do now, and that creates these outlines. And doesn't matter what kind of floor or wall texture is behind it, we always have a good structure in these walls. And this was a much better way of handling everything and doing everything. And like I said, the result is pretty much the same as yesterday, except it's done better. So these gray bars and everything that's gray over here are top parts of the wall. Those are rendered as last thing. These walls are already lit because we're in the hallway, we can see them. And then when we reach a door, this room gets lit, including the walls and the doors in it, the items in it, and a couple of bugs here and there that need to be fixed. But this is pretty much how it works now. And next phase is probably just start tinkering with filling up these rooms with cool items. Because Dylan just gave me a sprite sheet full of little images, cabinets, sofas, computers, tables, toilet stuff, boxes, vases, and these things. So I think I'm gonna tinker with this the rest of the afternoon, just see if I can add a bunch of these furniture into the game code and then have it randomly placed in the apartment, see how that all looks. So adding the furniture was a lot easier than I thought, mostly because Dylan just created a bunch of great stuff I could implement very easily. I already had that TV in one of the apartments, and the rest pretty much borrows that same code, and we quickly now have boxes. We have a couch, we have a dispenser, toilets. So pretty much any type of furniture can now be added, which brings me to the biggest issue. How do we place all that furniture into an apartment? Obviously, I would like to have it all done procedural by the computer. This code pretty much creates a bunch of boxes, and then we place stuff in it, like doors, windows, humans, furniture, everything. Eventually, I want all this code to be either done by the computer procedurally, just create cubes and then see if you can split it up into smaller cubes. Or alternatively, we create them using a template, little editor, so that we create a base layout for an apartment with a bedroom and a toilet, or maybe 2 bedrooms and no toilet. I don't know how these people live, but this all has to be sorted eventually. For now, this code works and does what we want. The next phase is figuring out how to create furniture randomly, because I don't want to create every furniture separately, like add a TV there, add a sofa, add another sofa, add a cabinet, I want the computer to do this for us. Problem is, the computer has no idea what all of this is, so that's gonna require some work. So the first thing I think I should be doing is assign an identification to every room, so that the computer knows this is a living room. So we're not gonna place any beds in there. This is a toilet or bathroom, so we're not gonna place a TV in there, although. So first we need to make sure that every room knows what kind of room it is. So that's probably the first thing I'm gonna try. Like I said, maybe not today, maybe tomorrow. See if I can attach rules to every item and every furniture type, and then see what the computer does with all that. And if it makes sense, and if there's still room to walk around or to place enemies. Also a very interesting thing, because else this is gonna be a very weird and boring game. Just apartments, and you break into apartments, but there's nobody home, and you can destroy everything and leave again. And alright, the quickest update this time is just showing you this. As you can see, this street is like cluttered with bad guys, and that's what I've been working on. I left the apartment stuff for a bit because too much stuff that I first need to figure out before I just dive into it. So I wanted to do something fun, and Dylan has been creating a bunch of bodies and heads, and we now decided to, like I mentioned before, split them up, so chop off the heads, and we now have bodies and combine them randomly with heads, and that brings us with a lot of variation. These are just 2 bodies and I don't know, 8 or 9 different heads, and the computer then just generates these bad guys. And let's head into the building. Here we have all the hallway and lighting stuff is now improved. There's still tiny bugs here and there. but most of this stuff is working as I wanted. So apartments are not visible, rooms are not visible until we breach the door, then it becomes visible. And this took some time because we have all these corners and those are all separate little issues and things. But yeah, it's working. You can destroy everything. It's not pretty, but it works, especially, well, except these guys, they just stay alive. Breach another room, and as you can see, it all opens up as you breach a room. Let's go in here and breach it. Let's go in here and breach it. 2 more bad guys. And another door, and of course the final door. It's all shaping up pretty well. That was this week's development. On one hand, I think I was very productive and did a lot, figured out a lot and fixed a lot. But on the other hand, it doesn't feel like I accomplished a lot because, well, this whole apartment stuff that I need to figure out how to do it in the best way and in a flexible way and in a way that allows me to create a huge amount of content. That problem just keeps bugging me. It's gonna take a little bit more time, and I'll probably have it in my head all weekend just trying to figure out what the best solution will be eventually. But that's also how I build my games. That problem will remain and stay there for a couple of days. So now I quickly just did something else and created all these characters, and that way I still feel like I made a lot of progress, even though the whole character implementation stuff, I think it took me like 30 minutes. It's not a lot of work, but it's visually very satisfying. Just 30 minutes of work, and now we have all these enemies spawning everywhere, and they all look different, or they can look different. They can all look the same as well if we want to. So that's just mixing the fun stuff and the easy stuff with the hard and difficult stuff, and eventually we'll hopefully get to something that's playable. And I also just had a little talk on the Discord. If you ever want to join in to those talks, then hop on the Discord and make sure to just say hi to everybody. We talked a little bit about doing these apartment levels, and yeah, I think everybody agreed, or at least those that participated agreed, that doing templates like a little level editor, level designer, and then use that for randomization is probably the best way to go. And I also did it like that for Residual, Space Guns 2, Space Guns 1 and a bunch of other games. So usually, even though it's random and procedural, that doesn't mean you shouldn't design stuff, because designing just gives you more flexibility and also a much better way to steer gameplay in a certain direction or have the player experience certain things. So the conclusion is I'll have to create a level editor for this game. It's going to be different from other level editors because you can't fully design a level. You'll have to do it with, like, you're designing a room, so it's always a square, and in that room you can place stuff, and then you can join other rooms to it, but you can't specifically place walls because that is just not how this game is now built and laid out. So it's going to be an interesting level editor, and I'll have to just start working on it, I guess. But anyway, that's it for this week's video. I just edited a bit of it, and I think it's already a long enough video, so no comments reading this week. I replied to everybody, I think, on last week's video. So maybe next week I'll read out your comments again. So make sure to drop them below, like, subscribe, and I will see you next week. Bye.